My guest on today's episode is William Mann. He was adopted from the foster care system here in the state of Hawaii back in the 80s, I believe. He was adopted by a military family who was stationed here in Hawaii and then relocated to the mainland after he was adopted. He himself enlisted in the military, is currently stationed here, and reached out to our agency to help with his search and reunion process, which search and reunion is when people who are adopted or birth family look for either if they're an adoptee, they look for their birth family, or if they're the birth family, they look for the child that was placed for adoption. So our agency does provide search and reunion services to the extent that we can. We provide those services to help adoptees find their birth families, as long as within our capacity. So William reached out to our agency. Unfortunately, we weren't able to locate his birth family for him, but we helped him process the paperwork and submit it to the State of Hawaii Adoption Records Office. We didn't have the information on file because we didn't place him as a child with his adoptive family, but we can help adoptees, navigate the paperwork, which is sometimes confusing, and get it submitted to the right agency or department. So that's what we did. We helped him submit it. And then I hadn't heard from him in a while, and I know that if, whether or not he was successful, there's unique challenges to both, kind of like the grief or disappointment if you don't find your birth family, and the overwhelming emotions that come with reuniting with your birth family. So I reached out to him to find out kind of, what happened, if he needed support. And he let me know that he was able to reunify with his birth family. So he'll tell you more about what that experience was like. I was really happy to hear that he was able to get in contact with them and, finally meet up with them. I'll let him talk about his story, but I did want to give a little bit of context about search and reunion before we dive into the episode. So most of the people that contact an agency, not just ours, but any agency, government, state department, or private investigator sometimes, in order to search for their birth family, is typically was typically placed in a closed adoption, which means that they don't have a relationship or contact or connection to their birth family, and they generally have very little information about the birth family. Usually the adoptive parents themselves also have very little to no information about the birth family. Um, so uh, most of the people who do decide to look for and reunite with their birth families are doing it as adults. So, they grew up as an adoptee, and then as an adult have decided to take the step towards searching for their birth family. It can be challenging for a number of reasons. Usually the primary challenge is, just a lot of dead ends. I think most adoptees who start search and reunion know that there is the possibility that they will never find anything, or that their birth parents have passed. Um, a lot of adoptees also experience kind of like shame or guilt, either directly from their adoptive parents for looking for their birth family. Maybe their adoptive parents feel like they gave them everything their kid needed. Like, what more could they possibly need? Maybe the adoptive parents feel insecure or threatened by the birth parents, the birth family, and the child's desire to look for them, or feel like they're going to lose their child to the birth family if they do reunify with them. And then there's also internalized guilt and shame. As we'll talk about in later episodes, a lot of adoptees suffer from internalized guilt and shame. It's one of the 7 core issues in adoption. So even if their adoptive parents never explicitly said those things or projected those ideas onto the adoptee, they might still feel that way or feel afraid that if they decide to pursue search and reunion, that it would hurt their adoptive parents, and also that kind of fear of abandonment. They might feel like their adoptive parents, they might have a fear that their adoptive parents will abandon them or reject them if they do decide to look for their birth families. So it's not uncommon. I've heard of a lot of adoptees who actually waited until their adoptive parents passed before they decided to search for their birth family, which unfortunately, depending on the age of your birth parents when you were born and the age of your adoptive parents, when they passed, you run the risk of your birth parents having passed by then as well. So those are a couple of the challenges. Another challenge is the disappointment that the adoptees experience when they are able to reunify with their birth family. So, um, they probably have this idea, whether it's romanticized or not, of what their reunion's going to look like. And if it doesn't meet those expectations, that can be disappointing or even, heartbreaking depending on the situation. I know that in Steve George's episode, he mentioned a documentary about a girl, a Vietnamese woman who was adopted, who reunified with her birth family and felt exploited by the birth family for, like financial compensation, which, there's different sides to every story, but um, if you have an expectation that you're going to be, received with open arms and everything is going to go the way that you're expecting it to go or the way you want it to, then that can be challenging. There's also just, the handling all the emotions. There's so many feelings I can imagine that are, you know, multi-layered and complex, and so processing all of that and being able to hold space for your grief and your happiness and your joy or whatever you're feeling is a lot. And so there was this one movie that I just watched recently. It was an independent film about a Korean woman who was adopted by a family in France, and I can't remember how she went to Korea, and it's fictitious, but I'm sure it's based on true stories. Um, she goes to her adoption agency when she travels to Korea and locates her birth family, and her experience is just, it's very difficult to watch. She kind of retreats inward, and her birth father really wants a relationship and has a lot of like guilt associated with placing her for adoption, and he's trying to make up for it, and she's not receptive of it. And I was sitting next to this couple in the movie theater who kept like they couldn't believe the way that the Korean adoptee was reacting to like the father's attempt at having a connection. And I was pretty annoyed. They obviously weren't able to understand where she was coming from and how difficult and painful that must have been for her, whatever feeling she was having towards her father. And all they could see was, his attempts at reconciling the relationship, but, they weren't empathetic towards her. So the movie was called Return to Seoul. Yeah, so Search and Reunion, I think a lot of people have seen videos on the internet or on TV of families reunifying, and it can be, beautiful and wonderful, and even if it is difficult, there are parts of it that are beautiful. Um, but I think it's important to recognize and hold space for the less beautiful feelings and moments and experiences. So that's why I wanted to check on William when I hadn't heard from him in a while, just to make sure he was doing okay. I think that's also, so this, most adoptions prior to, I would say even prior to, definitely prior to the 2000s, but maybe even up to like 2010 were closed, especially if the children were being adopted internationally, because, the story that a lot of the children that were adopted internationally were told was that their birth parents abandoned them on the street or at a police station or, on at the orphanage steps. Whether or not those stories are true, we'll probably unfortunately never know. No one had access to the birth parents' information. So there's a lot of resources for Korean adoptees in particular. I know that people who are adopted from Korea who live in the US at least, I don't know about other countries, can submit their DNA in what form, I don't know, to like their nearest Korean embassy or consulate, which will be submitted to the Korean government. And then, if the birth family also submits their DNA and there's a match, the government will help you reunify with your birth family. There's also, I mean, there's like, 23andMe and Ancestry and whatnot. There's also, I mean, it's really sad. At one point, I was attempting to find out more information about my dad's adoption history, if that culminated in finding out information about his birth mom. I would have been ecstatic, but also I was really realistic about the fact that that likely wasn't going to be possible. But during that process, I stumbled upon this website. It's Korea Adoption Services. It's their website, and they have on there a family search bulletin board where birth family and adoptees can post information about, the people or the person that they're looking for. And, if you see something on there that matches your description or your situation, then I guess you can contact them and find out more. I don't really know exactly how it works. I don't know if there's like a software that matches certain similar keywords, or if you just have to, I mean, there's so many entries. If you have to just like peruse through them all and look for something that sounds like you, then I mean, you could spend months doing that. But it's really sad, actually. There's a lot of, adopt birth moms on there who are like, I placed my kid for adoption, please help, I'm trying to look for them. Or siblings, birth siblings, like my mom placed a baby for adoption before I was born, I'm looking for my sibling, can someone help? So it's pretty sad. I don't know what the success rates are, but it is interesting to look at. There's also, I know that a lot of Russian adoptees are able to find birth family on, it's like the equivalent of Facebook in Russia. So a lot of kids who are now adults that were adopted from the former Soviet Union, that I know of, have reunified with birth family in that way, sometimes accompanied by unique, difficult experiences, especially around like language. If you're someone who's trying to learn Russian, Godspeed. It's a very difficult language to learn, but you know, things like that, language barriers. And I know that a lot for some Russian I mean, obviously, like travel to Russia is difficult, if not impossible right now, question mark. And so if if an adoptee finds their birth family and their dream is to meet them someday, they are met by, logistical challenges. So at this point, we encourage most, if not all, of the adoptive parents that I work with to have an open adoption in some capacity to avoid the pain and suffering that an adoptee has experienced growing up, not knowing who they are or where they came from. Some there's a lot of adoptees out there who don't want to meet their birth family and don't have any interest in reunifying, and that's okay. It's totally valid. But they at least, I think, and I could, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I think they at least deserve to know, who their birth parents are. And have the option to have a relationship or a connection with them if they so choose. There are always, of course, exceptions if it's not a safe situation, but you can still introduce the child to the birth family, and there's so many ways that adoptive parents can be creative. Even if it's not like an actual relationship with the birth family, they can still like honor the birth family, celebrate the mom on Mother's Day. If they have photographs of her, they can keep the photographs around, or of siblings. And there will always be instances when having a relationship is not possible, either because the birth family is not known, or if the birth parents have unfortunately passed away. But there's a lot of different ways to keep the birth family alive in the child's life. And I think that's the responsibility of the adoptive parents, so that when the child's 30, they don't have to go on a wild goose chase looking for the birth family. So again, I strongly believe that it's the responsibility of the adoptive parents. If the adoptive parents have some sort of feelings about that, then that's something that they should process before they embark on the adoption journey, not after they've taken a placement, because that's not fair to the child. Or if your child is now an adult and they are interested in that, like, I encourage adoptive parents to be as supportive as possible, and that if you do have your own feelings, that you try to figure those out without projecting anything onto your child. And as an adoptive parent, you just never want to be the barrier between your child knowing about their birth family. So there might be other barriers like time and space and just general lack of information. But I think that if your child grows up and they have a desire to have a relationship with their birth parent, and they find out that you were the one that was prohibiting that, I think that can create a lot of space and opportunity for resentment towards the adoptive parent. It's what's best for the child. So I'm going to transition to my interview with Will. His story is really cool. And if you are an adoptee that is in the middle or beginning or of the search and reunion process, or you have reunified with your birth family, I just want to give you like a big virtual hug and let you know that whatever you're feeling is valid. The good, the bad, the ugly, and know that you're certainly not alone. But I know that it's a lonely path to walk, and that our agency and the adoption community at large is here to support you. So okay. So, thank you for joining our podcast today. Today I have a very special guest with us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is William Mann. Real name, biological name is Destin Pagampel.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, you first initially contacted our agency because you were trying to locate your birth family, right? And
Mhm.
we didn't talk a lot while you were while we were helping you out, but so I don't know much of the background of like where you were born and when you were
Mhm.
placed. And then later I reached out just to make sure that you had heard from someone at the adoption records office. I wanted to make sure that you weren't being like kept in the dark, and you told me that you actually were able to be reunited with your birth family, right?
Mhm.
So you want to give like background of like when you were born, um, who adopted you?
Mhm. Oh yeah. So I was born in Pearl City, right down the street. And then I was in the foster care system till I was 5,
Okay.
and then I got adopted. I forgot what year, but what's it called? There, my adopted parents were Gloria and Anthony Mann, and my dad was in the military during that time.
Mm,
And then I left when I was, I think, at 6 or something like that. And then we moved to Tennessee and then bounced around and then joined the military. And then I had a few opportunities while I was here in Hawaii like 7 years ago.
Mm.
And then, to be honest, I had cold feet a little bit, and I was going through a lot. And then God opened up the opportunity for me to come back here, so I took full advantage of it. And then I filled out the paperwork and everything. And then, yeah, like after I filled out the paperwork, it took like 2 or 3 weeks, and I checked the mail, and it said court documents, and I thought I was going to jail, but it said adoption agency records open, and I opened it up, and
Oh,
I
they
went
just
to
mailed
immediate.
them to you?
Hmm?
They just mailed them to you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
no, they mailed me a notice like, hey,
Oh.
you got to pay some fee to open it up. So the next day, I went over to the courthouse and I got the paperwork, and I like drove around for like an hour. I was like excited. I didn't know how to react, and then I
Mm.
opened it up. Then I immediately like went on Facebook, and I was like, all right, gotta find my family.
Mhm.
So make a long story short, I drove around to a couple addresses, and then didn't meet anybody. And then one of the neighbors was like, hey, try Instagram. I was like, I don't even have an Instagram.
Mm.
So I made one, and then my cousin, Lovely, she got me in contact with my mom.
Oh, wow.
And I saw her, 3 days after I made contact with my cousin.
Wow.
And then I found my brothers. They're here. They're in Pearl City also. So,
Okay. Wow. So you have obviously like a Southern accent.
hmm,
So you grew up mainly in the South, I assume?
yeah.
Okay. And are you close with your adopted
Oh, yeah.
parents? Yeah.
Hmm.
Nice.
I put them through a lot, but, hey, I am where I
Yeah.
am now. So I'm grateful for it.
Nice. And you're still close with them.
Hmm.
Um, did do you remember anything from prior to when you were adopted? I mean, you were 5, so that's pretty old.
I was a little tyrant. I'm not gonna lie. Almost got kicked out of preschool and kindergarten.
Wow.
But uh, I remember going to the zoo and working with my caseworker, and
Mm.
uh, at that time, I was, like I said, being bad. So I remember her yelling at me a little bit. But past that, I really don't remember too much.
Okay.
I was just like the biggest thing was me getting adopted, and my mom and dad, they took me into their home and treat me like their own kid,
Mhm.
and they've been doing it ever since.
And you don't remember, like, your brothers or anything?
No, I
No.
never. No, according to paperwork, I was around for a little bit, and then my parents decided to put me up for adoption
I
because it
see.
was just too much. Because my sister, she was going through a lot of health issues, and I was too. So, they kind of had to balance it. So,
Okay.
no, even to this day, I believe they made the right decision, and I'm just glad that I can meet my parents.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's so fresh. What date did you, first
Mm-mm.
make contact with your birth mom?
It was like November. It was like right before Christmas. Like,
Okay. And it's May now, so it's
hmm,
been 6 months. Do you see her often?
yeah, I've seen her. I think about like 5 or 6 times. She stays in Washington, with some of my aunts and stuff. But she graciously came up here to handle some family issues, and we kind of hung around a little bit.
Okay, so she was on island when
Hmm.
you were looking for
No,
her?
she was in Washington when I
Oh,
was looking.
did you go to Washington or she came here?
So crazy story was I was gonna go see a friend, and it so happened that um, something said call and change my flight, and it said
Mm.
that we're gonna make a stop in Seattle, Washington, where my mom is at. So immediately a call that happened, and then I met up with her and hugged her and everything, and we sat there and talked for about 2 hours.
Wow. Was
And
it emotional?
I didn't cry. She
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
But I was just, this whole time everyone asked me if I cry or anything like that. And to be honest, no. I'm just like super excited.
Yeah.
Just to meet. I meet family all the time, and our
Mm.
family's humongous.
Yeah.
So,
Your birth family?
mhm.
Yeah, okay. Um, did you have, like, a lot of questions for her, or you guys just, like, talk
No,
story?
we just talk stories. She asked me, what I'm doing, what's my job, and you know, she was just super excited. She hugged me and couldn't let me go.
Mhm.
So, but it was good. And I mean, I met my dad right before I went to the Philippines. So about 2 months ago, we were at a party, and my brother was like, "Hey, your dad is here." I was like, where?
Oh, wow.
And he was sitting outside, and we met up like about an hour later. And I was kind of like didn't know what to say, but we just intersected, and he was like, "Hey, are you Dustin?" I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, I'm your dad." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Let's go talk." Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Have you been able to, have you seen your dad at all since then?
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, he was like super excited to see his grandkids when
Oh,
they came up
cool.
here. So we spent like what, 2 days worth of seeing each other.
Wow. So your kids came and then they met your biological dad.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so cool.
And my mom and everybody else in the family.
Nice. Um, so you're so it sounds like it's been pretty seamless or easy for you to integrate into each other's lives.
Yeah. I haven't made it too, I guess complicated or anything. Like,
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, how do you feel? Do you hate them or anything like that? And again, years and years ago, I had the thought in my head that my family did the right thing. And I mean, I guess the only bad thing I said to my mom was, well, to be honest, I was expecting to either see you and then walk to your tombstone or see you alive. And I'm,
Mm.
blessed to see you alive and well, um, despite the history and everything that had happened in the
Mhm.
past. And one of the things my sister and me talk about is, looking at the now. That's what's most important.
Yeah. Have you how many brothers do you have? Biological brothers?
Oh my goodness! So I just found out on my dad's side that I have more brothers and sisters, but my mom's side I have three brothers, younger brothers.
Mhm.
And then my sister, I actually got to see her on Christmas. Me and my boys took a road trip and got to go see her in Daytona, Florida,
Oh,
which was
nice.
awesome. And then on my dad's side, I think I have with my sister, two sisters and three other brothers.
Cool.
Yeah.
And are a lot of them here?
Oh, we're just spread all over the place right now.
Okay.
So,
It must be so nice to be here for work and have family
hmm
here that you can see. Um, that's so cool. I remember I asked you when you first, like when you came to do your paperwork, if you knew what your ethnicity was, and you said you didn't. So now do you know?
Filipino, and then uh, that's really it.
Okay.
Um, you know,
What, if you don't mind me asking, what race are your adopted parents?
Black,
Okay,
African American.
so you
Yeah.
knew that, I mean, it was like people knew that you were adopted?
hmm
Yeah, okay. What was it like growing up as an adopted person? Did you ever feel like you had any questions that you didn't have answers to?
No, I always felt, they really took me in and raised me into, who I am now. And even though, like I said earlier, I was a little tyrant, they really just treating me like, I was their biological son
Mm,
every single day. And they were just such a blessing. They're still a blessing now. And they're very supportive. As soon as I found my family, my biological family, like my dad went crazy, my mom went crazy. Like they were just super excited and
aw,
supportive of me.
and they didn't know who
Mm-mm.
your biological. That's crazy that even your adopted parents didn't have access to that
I think they knew a
information.
little bit. I'm not 100% sure if they ever met him or anything like that, but
Mm,
from the paperwork, my mom and dad they just adopted me and just took me in, and I remember them telling me a little bit over the years, about what happened and stuff like that, but didn't have the full details
mhm,
of everything. I don't believe, but just reading the court documents and everything, it was an eye opener. It was a lot going on, but you know, again, we're here now, and I'm super excited.
mhm. Was it hard for you to read the documents?
A little bit. I had to
Yeah.
read a couple pages over and over again just to understand the graphs.
Mm,
But you know, it was an eye opener, and a lot of that stuff that I've read, is just things that happen in life. But again, I see him alive now, so that's
mm.
what matters the
Yeah.
most to me. And my brothers and sisters are doing good, and I still got a lot of more family to meet.
Yeah.
So,
It's like a project almost.
yeah.
Um, where do your adopted parents live?
My mom, she lives in Florida, and then my dad lives in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, gotcha. What was gonna Oh, you mentioned that your dad was in the military. Is that what
Mhm.
inspired you to join the military also?
During that time in my life, I really didn't wanna join the military, but it was really no choice but to.
Mhm.
So, after my first 2 years, I was just, like, "Alright, I can do it." So,
Are you
I've
gonna
been
do the
in
full
for
20?
yeah, so I've been in for 14, I got 6 more
Oh,
to go.
wow. Yeah, you're almost
So
done.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, cool, and then you can retire. Do you know what you wanna do after?
So, I've always, been into drawing and building things, and, what's it called? For years and years, it's always been my dream to join Disney as a
Oh,
project manager.
wow.
So that's what I really wanna do. So I'm finishing up my degree in project management right now, and, gonna take a couple more certifications so that when I get close to retiring, I can just jump right into Disney.
Wow, that's so cool. That's such a unique career path. So you were just in the Philippines for
Mhm.
work, and you found out that you were Filipino right before? Was it interesting to be in the Philippines, like, knowing now that you're
No,
Filipino?
so, a lot of people, they said that I was Filipino, and I was like,
Oh,
"Yeah, okay, cool." But
you could
actually,
be
this is
anything
actually my
though.
3rd time going to the Philippines,
Okay.
and, it's just, landing every single time is good to, go to your roots and kinda
Mm.
learn. So, I've learned from time to time a little bit of language. I'm still horrible at it sometimes, but, it's just good. And, my mom, she tries to teach me language, and I'm just like, "Okay." She laughs at me, but
Yeah. It's a hard language to learn.
yes.
When you're here, because you were born here, do you feel when you're here like a connection to the islands or like the community?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is, I don't like sitting next to the water, so,
Mm,
it kinda sucks, just being on the island, but if I'm going through something or just need to get away, I can just go to the water, and, I'm always driving by my elementary school, Pearl Soda Elementary, by the, NEX all the time, and
mm,
I just laugh. Got a lot of history over there as a
mm.
child. Um, but, it's just good, and then, the thought of having family and being able to go see them on the weekends or even just talk to them, it's just good.
Nice. Um, what are some like what are some things that you've learned from both sets of your parents now that you know all of them that you want to because you have kids that you
Mhm.
want to pass along to your own kids?
So biggest thing is, like I said earlier, we all go through things, um, and that, family is always there for you no matter what. When I met my biological mom, her name is Alma,
Mm,
all she could do is just smile, and that smile just, like, made me smile even bigger, and, even after reading the documents and everything that she's been through, she's been clean for a long time now, which is
nice.
really good.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest takeaways from that is that, no matter what you go through, it's always a positive end on that. The same thing for my dad. He was heavy on drugs for a long time, and he's been clean for, I think, almost 2 years now, if I remember right. And again, negativity you can always overcome it with positivity, with help, and family. And, just like in Hawaii, the ohana, means family. So it's good to have that support, and just, if you're going through stuff, just talk it out. And there's always resources out there to help, and just build relations as you go. My adopted parents, they built that relationship with me despite of what I went through. They took me in and showed me the love and care, just like I was their own kid.
Mm,
And, you know, just live day Just live, life day to day.
mm, nice. I love that. Do you have like a message or any words of wisdom that you would want to give to other adoptees who are maybe going through the reunion process?
So biggest thing is just be consistent. Like, if you want to know, hey, go out and research. It's crazy because actually on the internet scares sometimes, but
Mm,
they do spit out the truth. So there's like two addresses that I looked up and went to, And actually, to come to find out, those were really their homes. I didn't really believe it at first because, knocking on the door and not getting answers, it's like, all right, there's no one here. But
Mm.
after driving around for a little bit, and then when my mom came into town, we actually went to one of the addresses, and they actually lived there. And we actually had some family currently living in there. They were just at work when I came by. But just be consistent. Take your time. It's gonna be full of emotions, but just enjoy the moment. And just take one day at a time. And we never know who you're gonna meet because I've met, I don't know, countless cousins and things of that nature. So, you know, just enjoy the moment.
Cool. What do you call your do you call both your moms mom?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Nice.
No,
It's not confusing or
no, no,
anything. Nice. Um, have your moms haven't met yet, have they?
no, they
No.
haven't.
Do you
Mm-mm.
think they would be interested in
Oh
doing that
yeah,
someday?
my mama Elmo, she does want to meet my mom and my dad and really thank them uh for everything they've done.
Mm.
And she's just like super excited. She's like, a couple of months ago, she was like, "Yeah, I just want to go down to Florida and go to Memphis and just hug them and say thank you and everything."
Oh,
So she's taking a good headway on it. So.
cool. Great. Um, so my last question is, do you have, so I ask everybody that I interview this question, but has there ever been any movies that you've watched or TV shows or books that you've read that you feel you resonate with as an adopted person or even just as a person?
Well, I haven't like read a book in a long time, but I remember when I was young, I would always get the chicken chicken soup for the soul, I
Oh
believe it
yeah.
was. And there's a lot of there's quite a few stories about adoptees and
Mm,
people going through foster care and this a lot of life lessons in those books. And I would say those series of books are really good,
yeah.
just to give like encouragement or just read about other people's lives and you know maybe use some of it, maybe not, but that's what I would say
Nice.
has stuck with me.
Yeah. I used to read Chicken Soup for the Soul with my mom, and then I made her stop because like, everything was so sad, and I was like, I can't be crying before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I mean, we haven't talked since you found your family, so I was really excited to like hear your story for myself, but
Hmm.
I'm also really excited to share your experience with other people because I think it's so important to share adoptee experiences because everyone's is so different. Like
Hmm.
some people meet their families, they have a horrible experience, or some people never find them, or some people are not interested in finding their families. So I'm so glad that you've had such a positive experience and that you now just have so many more people in your life who you can, call family. And that's so great. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Please remember to subscribe and leave a rating or review. Follow our socials at A Family Tree High. And if you have any feedback or know someone that should be featured on our podcast, please head to our website, afamilytree.org, and fill out the form on our podcast page. If you'd like to make a donation to our organization, you can do so on our website as well.